I hope that you're enjoying the day as much as we are. I would like to welcome my esteemed colleagues here today.
So, as a GP obstetrician, I look after a number of women in labour and childbirth, and this is a time when it's very, very easy to witness the mind-body connection in action. So during labour, our body is programmed to move through a sequence of actions with very little input from the mind, actually. But the mind, if it gets involved, it can actually cause things to go a little bit off track. And that's particularly if we start experiencing fear and anxiety. So one of the hormones that's very important when you're in labour and childbirth is oxytocin. So oxytocin is also known as the cuddle hormone. In fact, why don't you just turn to your partner and give each other a cuddle and just feel that oxytocin flowing. Please feel free to breastfeed if that helps. So as you've just noticed, when we're intimate with each other, we get this beautiful flow of oxytocin, and that's also very helpful when we want to soothe each other as well. So oxytocin is released from a part of the brain called the pituitary gland, and there's oxytocin receptors all through our body, but in particular when we're in labour, the important place is the uterus, and then once the baby's born, in the breast tissue, which allows breastfeeding to occur. So when we go into labour, we get a huge letdown of oxytocin and starts that uterus contracting. And they start off quite slowly, and you might get one contraction every half hour or so, and it might be quite short. And then as the oxytocin builds up, they become much more frequent, they last a bit longer. But generally they'll last for about a minute at their maximum, and they're probably sort of 3 to 5 minutes apart. So obviously there's some pain that women experience during that sort of minute of contraction. But then as the contraction settles and the uterus relaxes, you then have 3 or 4 minutes of absolute bliss where you've got this beautiful oxytocin flowing through your body. And if women actually are present and in the moment, they can really enjoy that relaxation response. The problem that happens often in labour is that women get very worried about that next contraction coming. And what happens with that worry and anxiety is that their adrenaline levels go up. And adrenaline and oxytocin actually work against each other. So what can happen if women are very worried or afraid during labour, and that can be very unconscious, they may not even be aware that that's what's going on, that can actually slow down the release of oxytocin, and labour may not progress as smoothly, I guess, as it could otherwise do. So one of the things I talk to my women about during their pregnancy is actually practicing skills like mindfulness, which allows them to be really present during that labour, so that when that contraction goes away, they can actually really enjoy that oxytocin when it's flowing without the pain, and then their labour can move much more effectively and less painfully. So mindfulness, many of you may have heard this term before. It's actually a very ancient technique that's been used in many different religions throughout the millennia, but it's really had a bit of a resurgence of late, which is great because it's a very simple but effective technique that you can use for managing symptoms like anxiety and fear. So Mary McIntyre is running mindfulness workshops all throughout the day today. Now, she has been a little bit tricky to find, so for those of you that have tried to find Mary, you can access her little workshop. It's in the kitchen at the back of this theatre, so you can just, the street running along here, I think Adelaide Terrace, and you can just exit in through the car park there. But I really encourage you to go and try that out, because it's a really, really effective technique and can be very beneficial for your health and well-being. And that's all I have to say, Jo.
Thank you very much. And it's just great to hear about all of those processes that are going on through the body, the different neurochemicals that are getting released. So thank you for that little introduction, especially that oxytocin. So that tells me we need to hug more. So hug. So thank you. So now our next presenter is Dr. Amy Longwell. Amy is a clinical psychologist who happens to work with me at Core Therapy Psychology Services, which is situated on the peaceful Toby Inlet in a purpose-built cottage, providing a therapeutic and naturalist setting for your counselling experience. Amy works with children, adolescents, adults, families and couples, and Amy believes that everyone has the innate capacity to grow and change, and is passionate about working with people to help them understand and work with what holds them back. Having worked alongside Amy, it's clear that she has a deep respect and compassion for everyone she works with. And something you may not know about Amy is that during her travels, she has spent some time in North America, where she worked as an art teacher and also hiked the Long Trail, which is a 440-kilometre hike along a mountain ridgeline the length of Vermont, which took 1 month to hike. So we look forward to hearing your thoughts about Mind Body Connect. Thanks, Amy.
Yes, I did hike the Long Trail, and it was such a magical time in my life. Even now, like years later, though, sometimes I get into bed and I just think, oh, this is really, really comfortable. I really kind of appreciate the softness of my bed and the warmth of my bed. So yeah, I'm just really excited to be here and to see the expo come to fruition after a lot of planning and a lot of meetings. To actually be walking around, seeing it happen is really exciting, and it's great to to share ideas with other practitioners. And I think a lot of us work in quite distinct ways, but there's also a real unity there and a respect for the way that we all work, and a real collaboration and working together. And it's also, such a great opportunity for people to come and really be empowered in their own journeys and to really, see what's out there and see what best fits for them. There's no kind of one-size-fits-all approach. It's very much about finding really what works for you. And this is a really great way to do that, and to just sort of see who you resonate with and what sort of modalities you might like to explore. So in my own practice, I really see everybody as unique, whether I'm working with a child or a family or an adult or a couple. I really work with people to understand all of the layers of their experience. So whether that's kind of patterns of thinking and patterns of feeling, strengths that they may have and their sense of meaning in their life, and in particular experiences that they've had and the way that they've made sense of those experiences and kind of adapted to them, which has sort of shaped who they are and maybe where things might be getting stuck for them. So we really work to understand those layers so that they can really kind of zoom out and look at that whole picture and look at what fits for them and what might not be working anymore, so that they can really let go of unhelpful parts of what's going on for them and really step forward into a more kind of authentic life that's a really good fit for them. And I think, psychology traditionally has been very focused on what's going on up here. It's just very kind of a cognitive focus, and it's almost been seen that the body's just this thing that just carries your head around, But we're really catching up in psychology and psychotherapy to what a lot of healing traditions have known for a really, really long time, which is of course that the mind and the body are not just connected, but they're inseparable. Every layer of your sense of yourself and of your experience really directly affects every other layer. And there's a lot of fascinating research coming out now that really speaks to that. Yes, there's been this really kind of very head focus. But one of the ways that I work is incorporating somatic psychotherapy, which is really helping people to tune into and really make use of the rich information that's going on in their bodies all the time. And it's a lot of information that we sometimes we get so busy we don't even notice it or pay attention to it. But there's a lot going on in there that we can really work with, and that can really not only deepen our connection with ourselves and with others, but in therapy really lead to very gentle but powerful transformation and change. So that's a way that I really love to work. Therapy is very much a process and a working together and a working through, but obviously the focus today is on kind of practical strategies and take-home sort of ideas that you can incorporate into your own life. So something that I'd like to speak a little bit about today, and something that I'm sure we can all relate to on some level, is unwanted cravings and unwanted habits, and how an understanding of what is going on in our brain when we engage in these habits can really help us to have a bit more choice with what's going on. Because often, you know, I don't know if you can relate, but you might be, you know, walking to get a glass of water and suddenly you just find yourself on the phone checking something. You think, I didn't even really mean to be doing this. How did I end up here? And, you know, I think there's a lot of excessive use of screen time that we can probably all relate to. And so, you know, a real understanding of the neurotransmitters that are being released in our brain can kind of help us with this and help us to have a bit more choice and flexibility with what's going on. So dopamine is the neurotransmitter of craving, and you know, dopamine is a great thing to have. It's an essential neurotransmitter, but on a very basic level, what happens is we kind of get a squirt of dopamine when we engage in a habit, or when we think about engaging in a habit, that signals to us, if you do this thing, it's going to be good. You know, so if you check your phone, something good is going to come from this. But the thing with dopamine that we really need to remember is that it doesn't really discriminate between habits that are helpful for us and habits that might not be so helpful. So we can crave anything. We can crave, you know, like a family walk after dinner, or like fresh, vibrant food, or, you know, ringing a friend when we're feeling stressed, or we can crave, you know, sitting on the couch with a bag of potato chips through your phone. So dopamine doesn't discriminate between those things. So there's this real level of habits being kind of unconscious. So to bring all of that into consciousness, the first thing that's really important is to just kind of tune in to yourself. When you notice yourself feeling like you want to reach for your phone, or when you notice yourself reaching for your phone, just stop and pause and drop into your body and just notice that wanting in your body. Like, where do you feel it? Is it like a tingling feeling? Do you feel like kind of a bit of anticipation or tension that rises up? And the key there is to feel that feeling in your body, but not to be led by it. And kind of a bit more of a fine-tuned understanding of dopamine can really help with that, because there's a few things that dopamine kind of tricks us into believing, so it's good to be aware of them. One of them is that, you know, if you engage in this habit, something good is going to come. So, you know, you kind of get that feeling like, I just need to check my phone right now because my brother's, uncle's, sister's, second cousin's cat might have done something amazing, and I just need to see a photo of it on Facebook. But, you know, you only need to see somebody sitting there on your phone, or, you know, sometimes when you catch your own reflection in your phone and you're just kind of sitting there scrolling through, it's not the most uplifting experience. So to really be mindful of that little sequence and to think, okay, I feel like this is going to be a good thing, but how is this really going to leave me afterwards? I probably feel more disconnected and probably a bit bored and probably more tired and those kinds of things. And the second trick that dopamine has you believing is that you know, if you give in to the craving, that the tension will reduce. But that's also a trick. And the third one is that the craving is going to last forever. And of course that's not true. Everything in life comes up and comes down again. So we just got to urge surf and ride that out. But more than, you know, not giving into cravings, there's kind of a deeper message there, because often when we engage in unwanted cravings and habits, there's kind of something missing or something else that we might want a bit more of in our life. It can be like a symbolic kind of substitute for connecting with people, or being more creative, or sleeping, you know, or doing something that really lights you up. So just to kind of summarise, you know, if you notice yourself reaching for your phone or engaging in an unwanted habit, just stop, breathe, check in with how you're feeling in your body, and be aware of those tricks that are dopamine can otherwise play on you, and then engage in something that's more meaningful, so that you can really, you know, use cravings and unwanted habits kind of as a way to guide you to a more meaningful and a more intentional life.
Thank you so much, Amy. And it's great just to have those, you know, practical tools that we can kind of take away at the end to really have a think about why we're doing the things we're doing. So our third presenter today is Lana Dewberry. Lana is a kinesiologist and neurotrainer. She began studying colour kinesiology in 2008. And in 2010 she moved from her home country of New Zealand to Western Australia. So welcome. It was here that she enrolled in the College of Neurotraining, and she's now been practicing in Dunsborough for over 2 years. Her passion is to help people make positive changes in their lives. So an interesting fact about Lana is that she's been surfing most of her life and actually feels most connected out in the ocean, especially in the big surf. The biggest wave she ever caught was at Dreamland in Bali, and it was after a massive set swept all but one other surfer to shore. She turned and caught a wave over 3 times her height, and actually received a round of applause when she got back to the shore. Much braver than most of us here today, Lana. Can you please share your insights into Mind Body Connect?
I wasn't sure to include in that little interesting fact of mine that I was surfing in a bikini and came off that wave and so much water went up my kahula either. I'm not sure if that's why they got the round of applause.
I missed that bit of detail.
The bikini stayed on. So that was a good thing. I'm really privileged to speak on this panel today and be here part of the expo, and thank you all for coming. It's so great to see you all. Like, theatre's almost full. That's wicked. I've always been quite fascinated with the body and how we work, how our minds work. When I was quite little, I used to get quite big panic attacks about dying. I was 5, and my parents couldn't do anything really except just talk me through it. So I've always sort of explored those areas, like when I grew up, and I was really interested. My mum did kinesiology, and that's sort of what I was introduced to. And speaking on the mind-body panel today, I wanted to share with you a few of my insights. And our body is not just an appendage to our brain, and we're not just our mind alone, nor are we a mind and a body without a soul. We are a complete whole package, and that's what we really want to encourage you to look at on this panel today. Our mind has a great power and influence over our bodies, especially when we look at our thoughts and the physical symptoms that they can create, especially the negative ones. But it's not a one-way street. Our body also in turn has a great influence on our mind. It's a constant two-way communication going on there. And it's really good to understand that. You don't have to be a helpless bystander in your life if you actively take part in your own care. Hippocrates, that wise old dude, he saw the body as a major healer, with the physician and the patient working together with nature to activate the body's own innate healing. The word heal comes from the Old English language, the word, of, use that? Halen. And it means more than just simply to heal, it means to make whole. Our minds, when engaged in a positive way, can be extremely helpful in shifting our focus from that of a problem-orientated focus to a solution-orientated focus. My all-time favourite movie is Patch Adams. It's based on a true story. Hands up, who's seen it? That's good. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. It's based on the true story of this man, and I think he was in his, I could be wrong, in his late 30s maybe, when he was self-committed into a mental institution. And there he found out that he could really help people in positive ways using kindness, friendship and humour. And my favourite bit of the movie is when he meets one of the other patients in there, and he's this old genius man called Arthur. And he walks around to people and he's holding up 4 fingers in front of their faces saying, "How many fingers do you see?" And they say, 4. You know, and he's like, "Oh, you're all crazy. 4. And walks off just babbling and breaking things. And Patch is really interested with this guy. And he goes to see him in his room later that day, and he says, "Arthur, what's the answer?" And he holds up 4 fingers in front of Patch's face and says, "How many fingers do you see?" And he says, "There are 4 fingers, Arthur." And he said, No, you're looking at the problem. you'll never get anywhere looking at the problem. Look at me, look through your fingers, look at the solution. And so I want you to hold up 4 fingers in front of your face now and focus on something beyond the fingers and see if the fingers go blurry in your vision. And maybe you might start to see, as you focus on something beyond them, more than 4 fingers as they go blurry. You might see 5 or 6. It's like those magic eye puzzles. At first you just see a bunch of colourful dots all bundled together, but as you practice and change your perspective, you actually see a beautiful picture inside. So Patch answers Arthur. He goes, I see 8. And he's like, yeah, 8's a good answer. Could be 5, could be 6. But he says, see the world in a different perspective. See what everyone else chooses not to see out of fear, out of conformity. See the world anew each day. And that's just choice. Engaging your mind and changing your perspective. And it's just my all-time favourite part of the movie. Now you all have to go see it. So there are many people in life saying, do this and do that, try this, try that. But there's no hard and fast rules on the way to happiness or on the road to wellness. It's like Captain Barbosa says in Pirates of the Caribbean, they're more like guidelines than actual rules. We just want to encourage you to find what works for you and the support that works for you too. Like Amy said before, it's not a one-size-fits-all medical industry. It's what works for you. So thank you.
Our final presenter today is Dr. Stephen Proud. Stephen was born and raised in Perth. He's married with 3 sons and graduated as a GP in 1980. He's worked as a GP in Africa, rural WA and Perth. He then retrained in psychiatry in 1994 and again trained in meditation in India, African spirituality in Zululand, medicine and alternative psychotherapies in India and California. He then went on to study environmental science in Perth. I actually do believe he may be what we term one of those eternal students. He is interested in general psychiatry as well as addictions and Buddhist psychotherapy, and in marrying these traditional and non-traditional treatments for mental health problems. He is currently in private practice in Perth and Bunbury. He is the clinical director of a Perth Adult Psychiatric Hospital, Abbotsford, and of an 85-acre rural retreat hospital, the Blackwood River Clinic near Nana. And an interesting fact you may not know about Stephen is this. He wrote a punk musical. And he's got so many funny stories to tell about that, but I'll let him go into that. We look forward, Stephen, to your thoughts and wisdom on the topic of Mind-Body Connect.
In 5 minutes, we're going to explore what it is to be human. And I'll give you some examples from my life and some examples from my therapy life. First principle, though, is the dictionary has 250,000 words, but words are just words. They are not reality. So we have a word called body, we have a word called mind, we have a word called heart, a word called consciousness. Doesn't necessarily mean that they are different just because the words are different. So the 5 words we're going to check out are consciousness, I, mind, heart and body. I'll start with I, because if anyone's done any meditation, you know that the notion of I is quite problematic. So I meditated my ass off in the mountains of South Africa. So chilled. Oh, amazing. I feel great. I went down to Johannesburg, which was one of the most violent towns on the planet with a massive murder rate. And I felt so anxious. And the first thing I said is, you're a useless meditator. You just spent all that time in the mountain and within 5 minutes you're as anxious as hell. And then I had an insight. Actually, meditation is a mirror. It just clears you to more accurately note what is. This wasn't my anxiety, it was the anxiety of the city. So I had no problem because I was meant to experience anxiety. The only problem is that I use the word I am anxious, which would lead me on a journey to heal the anxiety, but there was nothing to heal. It was the anxiety of the city. So that's the first principle. The notion of I is very problematic. Children absorb energy. So your mother may have been incredibly anxious, and then you come to me as a patient and say, I've got an anxiety disorder, fix me. All I really have to do is train you into how to release energy that you've carried your whole life, and the anxiety goes away. So first step in the training is to dump the word I and replace it with this awkward sentence. This is being experienced. So that's the word I. The word mindfulness, consciousness, attention, awareness, these are all synonyms for the same faculty a human has. So normally we're aware of our external space. So you're aware of my colourful shirt, obviously from my background in the 70s. But we are not trained to be aware of our insides. So if I asked everyone right at the moment what was occurring in the mind, the heart and the body, you would miss it. So you need to develop that. I think it just went off. We are in the theatre, as I was pontificating. So training in awareness to notice what happens on the inside and the outside simultaneously. Because if you don't know what is occurring, it's very difficult to free yourself from what you've carried in the past. So I have a patient, they come into me, they've been married 20 years, they're in their 50s, and their husband has left me. Is that a Freudian slip? Husband has left her, and she says, I am sad. And she comes from a background where Dad was quite critical and was always away, and she had a hunger for the support from her dad. So, I am sad, that is the sentence she's presenting, and she says, I'm a clinical case, fix my sadness. Okay, just take a breather. Just sit back, notice on the inside, and tell me what is occurring. Okay, let's go to the body. Everyone's aware of the body. The language for the body is itchy, pain, cramp, tension. That's body language. Sadness is not a body language. Sadness is a heart word. So you've got to get your language right, and they've got to link up to the three domains. Mind, what are the phenomena that occur in the mind? Anyone want to venture anything? Thinking. Thinking is about 99% of the phenomena that occurs in the mind. Pictures occur in the mind, and for some people voices and sounds occur in the mind, but mostly it's thinking. So thinking, and it's slow thoughts, it's fast thoughts. We're not really interested in the content, but the phenomena in the mind is thought. What occurs in the heart? Feelings. So emotions. I'm using the word heart for emotions. So sad, angry, lustful, shameful, happy. Those are heart words. So I say to the lady, just notice what is occurring in the three domains and just report. Don't use the sentence, I am sad. So she reports body tense in the lower back, heart sad, and I have no idea what's occurring in the mind, because most people can't track the mind moment to moment. But let's just say she's got a million thoughts, all confusing. The thoughts are going to be around, why did he leave me after all those years? I feel betrayed. You see how you use a feeling word for the mind? So it's just thoughts. And then I say, come back to the heart. What's actually going on there? Anger, grief, shock, loss, insecurity, desperation. There's a whole lot going in there. But when they came in through the front door, they said, I am sad. So to understand what it is to be human, you need awareness, you need to notice what's occurring in these domains, and then you need to give a voice to each of those domains, and don't simplify it. Say, I am angry, resentful, scared, frightened, sad, all of those things. Because if you don't totally communicate and notice what is occurring, it is very difficult to get a solution. So everyone comes to me and says, fix me. And the first step I say is, well, let's first check out what's actually going on so we really know the full extent of your reality, and then we can get a logical cure. You can't get a cure till you notice what is occurring. 5 minutes? That's it.
We've got a couple of questions, and I think that have already been previously sent in, and I think we might actually have time for just one of those questions today, because we've had so much shared today from the panel, so thank you so much. And the first question we received for the panel to answer is just this. So this is anxiety. What are some of the mind-body strategies to help them? And I thought, Sarah, we might start with you and getting your perspective on how you might actually respond to this.
Okay. So, as I alluded to previously, I think mindfulness is a really powerful technique that we can use for teaching people how to, as Stephen mentioned, become more aware of their anxiety, and then use that to sort of try and manage it. So mindfulness, really, the definition of it is paying attention in the present moment on purpose, non-judgmentally. And so anxiety can be a very physical experience. So lots of people will experience things like heart palpitations or gut cramps. And often they actually feel like they're having some sort of heart attack or some sort of physical illness that's actually going to cause them to die. It can be very, very, very frightening. And often people come and see me with symptoms of anxiety, not realising that it's anxiety. They actually think they've got some sort of physical problem that's causing their symptoms. So the first thing that we do, obviously, as GPs is make sure that's not the case. So we do a very thorough history and assessment, physical examination to exclude any physical causes for their anxiety. But once we make the diagnosis of anxiety, the next step really is to try and identify the triggers for their anxiety. And that can be quite a challenge. Sometimes the triggers are very subconscious or unconscious, and people don't really know what it is until we explore that with them. So once we've identified the triggers, the next step is then actually teaching them skills for that they can use to when they have a trigger that results in the physical symptoms, then being able to be present with those thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations, and then, as Amy was talking about earlier, allowing them to sort of, I guess, serve that sort of experience or that time, because everything passes, and in particular anxiety. So there's lots and lots of different techniques that we can use to teach mindfulness. So just awareness of the breath. So when people start feeling anxious, they can just then start actually just noticing their breath and really zone in on that. Another one is the body scan, so actually focusing their attention down on their feet and then slowly working their attention up to their head. And so just practicing those techniques can be really, really effective for managing anxiety. Stop now.
And it's great because I think that a few of us here actually on the panel had to check in with our own breathing and how we were feeling coming up here to speak, so we all definitely did that. So what would you say, Lana, in your experience about working with anxiety? What would be just a quick take-home tip, just so we can kind of summarise today's session?
With anxiety, you can feel quite trapped with no solution, and sort of something you've just got to ride out when it's happening. And what's happening there is people with anxiety, well, most of the time, we need to feel certainty, and when you're having an anxiety attack, you're really disconnected from any sort of certainty, very uncertain of what's going on, and the stress reaction's taken over full swing. It's very panicky. I've been there and done that myself, and I can definitely relate. One kinesiology simple technique that you can take home and or help with someone else who might be experiencing an anxiety attack is it's just holding the front and back of your head. And what this is doing is when you're in that fight or flight response that Sarah touched on earlier, the nutrients, blood, water, nutrients are leaving the right side of the brain, which is the big picture, your creativity, like it sees the big picture, and you're left with the left side of the brain, which like focuses right in on the problem or the issue at the time. And if it's an ongoing thing, the frontal lobes will also send their water, blood, nutrients to the limbs to fight or flight. So wherever you touch, you're bringing blood back to that area. By simply touching your forehead, you're helping to get the right side of the brain talking to the left brain again, and front and back as well. You'll see people do it naturally anyways when they're stressed. Like, oh, such a hard day today. Gosh, that guy at work, my boss, or I've lost my keys. They're actually rubbing these points trying to get it working again. So I've helped a few people, even out in the street. Had a guy in a theatre, nearly, he'd gone into some sort of shock reaction in the theatre, and he was like, is there anyone who's a doctor? No one was a doctor in the theatre, so I just jumped up and I was like, I kind of know first aid, I'll go check him out. And I just said, can I put my hands on the front and back of your head? And we did that for a couple of minutes.
And again,
She's got the hand.
So fabulous, because what it brings us back to is that mind-body connect, isn't it? So just those simple techniques of kind of grounding and holding ourselves. So thanks for that simple technique. But I think it's obviously quite powerful. So now I'll finish off with Amy and Stephen. Amy, would you like to give us a little bit of your thoughts on practical takeaway tip for people here today?
I guess, this is such a big area, and I'm sure we all feel we could just talk about lots of exciting ideas, but just briefly, I think everyone experiences anxiety at some point and sometimes in their life, but it's when anxiety takes up a lot of space in our life that it can become a real problem. And in terms of the relationship between the mind and the body, one kind of really fascinating but kind of simple tool that you can use is just having a look at your posture and how your posture might be inhibiting you from taking action or empowering you to take action and to step forward. So just briefly, just check in with your posture now. Try not to change it. Just check in with how you're sitting. Just notice, are you a little bit hunched or not? And I just encourage you just to hunch forward a little bit intentionally, just a tiny bit, so you wouldn't even maybe notice if someone was watching you. And just sort of check in, when you're sitting in that way, how do you kind of feel about yourself? How do you feel about your capacity to take action or to step forward in your life? What kind of language might you use if you were sort of sitting in this kind of posture? And just that simple, almost imperceptible change can have a really big impact on how you're feeling and your capacity to take action. And the flip side of that is this really fascinating research that's come out that shows that if you sit in a really powerful position, so I just encourage you to just take up a bit more space and really sort of spread your shoulders out, really pronounced. Shall we make it?
Kindness and compassion.
Yeah, kindness and compassion while you do it. This amazing research, if you sit like this for 2 minutes, you have this profound effect on physiology. So your testosterone level increases by 20% after 2 minutes, and your cortisol, which is this major stress hormone, decreases by 25%. So that's just amazing. Like if you know, in terms of overcoming anxiety, but also, you know, if you're going into a job interview or anything like that.
Doing a panel discussion on
Panel.
stage.
We might have all been in the toilet beforehand doing that.
So yeah, that's just a really simple technique, and I think a really fascinating insight into this incredible interconnectedness between mind and body.
Fabulous, thank you for sharing that one. And actually, some of us were in the toilet during that process. So I'm curious about maybe a take-home message that you would leave if somebody, in responding to that question about the anxiety.
Okay, well, firstly, stop using methamphetamine and having 20 cups of coffee a day and working 30 hours a day and get your life in balance. The second take-home message is that we can treat anxiety. It's really, really common. We have fantastic treatments for it, not as good as depression. Physical treatments, it's hard to be anxious when you're exercising or dancing or being creative and expressing yourself. It's hard to be anxious if you've dealt with your past, because the current anxiety can be a message from the past to deal with unresolved issues. Trauma. Medication works, let's not forget that. I'm a doctor, I'll remember that one. We have CBT, and there are all other forms of techniques to deal with anxiety. So my message is, it's common. Don't be ashamed about it, and don't be scared. And deal with it so that you can have a better future. Feel free.
Thank you. Some really